Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Simply Walk the Talk. I'm your host, JoshuaJHolland, and today we have two guests on the show. We have Debbie Rosas and Christina May Wolf of Nia Technique and many other things. We're going to dive into lots of conversation around moving your body, dancing. Yes, dancing. We're going to talk about dance, maybe even dive into a little bit of martial arts. And these two ladies are really pioneers in some of the things that I never even knew about. Like when I was first asked, did you hear about Nia Technique? I was like, no. And, you know, the response to me then was like, well, this Nia Technique is kind of at the forefront of all the things that I do today, you know, from CrossFit to mixed martial arts to combining a bunch of different modalities. So I'm going to let these two ladies go deep into what Nia Technique is and talk about some of the testimonies, some of the things that I've even discovered while reading this wonderful book that I have in my hands here. If you are only listening, I'm holding up the book that we're going to kind of talk about. And yeah, just as a quick background, I'll let both of them go into their own background. But Debbie Rosas is the founder and creator and co-creator of the Nia Technique. Dedicated lifelong to self-healing and self-mastery, Debbie has been a pioneer in the body-mind fitness industry since 1976. And credited with establishing the mind-body fitness category, she is a leading fitness innovator, teacher, author, choreographer, performer, healer, and artist whose work greatly influences the lives of thousands worldwide. After nearly 40 years, Debbie continues to offer classes, workshops, and trainings online and in person around the world. So that is Debbie. Okay. And then we also have Christina May Wolf. She's the general manager of Nia Technique and is a leading Nia and yoga teacher, studio owner, conscious business coach, and transformational leader. Holding a BA in business from the University of Washington, Christina blends her passions for business and conscious movement mastery as a 500-hour RYT, second degree Nia black belt teacher, and motivational speaker, choreographer, and studio owner offering classes, workshops, and training in Nia and conscious business. Blah, blah, blah. It's a lot, right? Both of you, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Cool. So after some quite interesting technical difficulties, mostly from my end, we finally made it. We're all here. So Debbie, why don't you start by just kind of talking about how you got to creating this wonderful concept?
Well, I always love sitting back and hearing somebody describe Debbie, right? What Debbie has done. And I think that when you ask, you know, how did you create this concept? I created it, first of all, by realizing I was not in my body. I was teaching fitness to people, but I wasn't really in my body. I was following the status quo. I was teaching from my mind, and I was deeply disconnected to the voice of my body, sensation. And out of a desire to honor students had been working out with me for 6 years, I called a martial art dojo. I said, tell me about your belt system. And I was invited to go to a dojo, Taekwondo dojo. I walked in, asked to take my shoes off, took my shoes off, and sensed my feet on the ground. So for your listeners at home, if your shoes are on right now, I encourage you to take your shoes off right now. There you go. Wiggle your toes, sense your feet on the ground. That was the first time I believe I had ever listened to my body talk to me. I think it was the first time that I ever recognized my voice. My body has its own voice, and that the most important relationship that I can ever develop in my entire life, on and off the dance floor, is that relationship that I have with my body. So from that moment on, I did not put my shoes on. I stopped jumping up and down, and I started moving versus exercising. And it changed my life, and it changed the entire world of fitness.
I love that. Especially the part about I stopped exercising and I just started moving. That is a huge piece to what, I mean, I'll be honest. When I first got the book, I was thinking, okay, like I do with most books, I'm going to open it up, finish it within a week or two, have a few like dog ears, or some bookmarks, little things here and there throughout the book. And I'm not even halfway finished. And I just keep like consuming this in a way that I don't want to finish it, right? Like it's like eating a good meal. You want to take your time and you want to really process all the flavors and understand what you're consuming. This is what I did with this book. That's why I haven't finished it yet, because it's not a book to just skim through. Like there's a lot of meat, for lack of a better phrase, but there's a lot in here. So thank you for offering that. And of course, I'm sure we're going to go a little bit deeper into this, but that was a beautiful explanation. Yeah.
And I think that, my taking off my shoes and sensing my body and going, oh my God, what is that sensation of vitality and aliveness I feel? I think Christina can comment on that. Most people feel that the first time after their first class, and they're like, what was that? Christina, I know you've shared with me your experience about that.
Yes. Well, my first Nia experience was unexpected and transformative. I grew up a dancer. From the time I think I was on my feet, I was dancing. And then in my youth, I studied classical dance, ballet and tap and jazz and modern and musical theater, and was always in performance. And then when I entered adulthood, I left all that dancing and joy behind me in my study and my business degree and my work and my career. And then I began to exercise since that I knew that I should. So I attended all of my fitness classes and did it because I should, and it was good for me, but I didn't ever experience that joy that I felt and knew as a child dancing. And when I stepped into my first Nia class, I remember actually coming in very skeptical. And we were dancing, but I kind of looked around and said, what are we doing here exactly? Like, are we studying? Are we getting ready for a performance? It doesn't feel like a fitness class. It doesn't feel like a dance class where I'm learning something to perform. But I stayed with it and in it. And by the end of the class, I was overcome by this awareness that the purpose of the experience was to experience it, was to experience the joy of movement. I didn't have to dance for anybody else. It was actually for me and my body. And that was really an opening into a new relationship with dance and with movement and with, quote, exercise, where I found that I could reconnect to that joy in my spirit, but also get fit and get my cardiovascular conditioning and build strength and get it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And replacing should, when I hear the word should, which is a word associated with exercise or health and well-being, you should do this. And to discover that You could replace I should be doing it with I can't wait to do it. I want to do it. It feels so good. I can't wait to get back and do it again. That's the best medicine. That is, movement is medicine, joyful movement versus repetitive exercise.
I absolutely agree. And I couldn't agree more because, to be quite frank, I've had a big opportunity, and I like to use the word opportunity or could instead of should, right? Like I have an opportunity. So growing up, I had this opportunity to be born into a family that was very big into martial arts. And so this idea, this concept of going to a dojo, respecting the dojo, being barefoot, this was not new to me, right? This was something that was kind of within my bones. And that was one of the first key takeaways to wanting to gravitate towards really getting involved with Nia, is because I knew from the first few pages, it's all about being barefoot. But then it's also less about this stringent technique, because let's face it, a lot of people don't dance because they feel like they can't dance, right? But what is dancing? What is movement? And there's a big part in the book that I relate to so well that and I can't recall the name of the people in this story, but I think one of the instructors asked a couple of the top instructors to just move. I think they wanted to kind of update their training, and he just asked them to move. And I guess they were some of the best aerobic instructors in the country, or at least here in LA. And and they were just kind of trying to level up, and he just asked them to move. And the only thing they could think to do was jumping jacks or running in place. But it's
that was me.
That was you.
That was me. What? That was when I was invited to go to the dojo. I took off my shoes, and the martial artist said, "Go ahead and move." And I trained myself to do jumping jack, mechanical movement. So after a couple of minutes, he said, "Okay, wait a minute, stop." He said, "You have forgotten how to move." And I was like, "What?" I teach exercise. And that haunted me. That was the statement that haunted me, so much so that when I drove home that night, I knew I could not get up in the morning and exercise. So all I could do was to take off my shoes and start stepping front and back and just moving and kind of listening to the music and sensing my feet on the floor and using my whole body. It was profound.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, listen, at the end of the day, I can just imagine the person listening to this or watching this. They're like, okay, let's just get to what Nia is. What is it exactly? Right. Let's just start there.
Well, I'm going to start at the very beginning. It is a barefoot workout. And it is a barefoot workout that has turned into what people call fusion fitness. Meaning what? It's a fusion of martial arts, dance arts, and healing arts. We have taken the best of the best to consider the design and function of the human body. And what do we need to protect the body from martial arts, express the body from dance arts, and heal the body and condition the body from healing arts. And that's important. It's important that we address the body, the mind, the emotions, spirit, which martial arts does as well. Holistic health and well-being does. But fitness did not. In my day, fitness was all about body. And understanding the complexity of the human spirit, the human being. It was important that we integrate into the workout stimulation for people's brain and mind, stimulation for all different body types, and stimulation to the emotion, even giving people the opportunity to use their voice and throw their hands up and yell, yes, and go, no. And then, most importantly, to make room on the dance floor for every person to honor their unique body, its structure and their unique spirit. And Nia makes room for you to discover you on the dance floor while moving in a way that feels good, that feels sensuous, that feels powerful, and in many ways almost effortless, where you might find yourself saying, this can't really work, but it does.
Well said. Well said. And Christina, I see you smiling and shaking your head there. Do you have some input that you could offer with that? Because I feel like you have something to say.
Well, I love this question, Josh. If you ask a dozen different Nia teachers or students what Nia is and how to describe it, you will get a dozen different answers. And that is because it is unique to each person what they receive from it. Now, I can give you the mechanics. It is inspired by 9 movement forms, 3 martial arts, 3 dance arts, 3 healing arts. Each Nia experience follows 7 distinct cycles. We start by setting the focus and intent. We step in to remove distractions. We warm up. We get moving to get our cardiovascular conditioning. We cool down. Then we have a cycle called floor play, which takes the place of floor work, sit-ups and push-ups. Instead, we play on the floor using gravity and time and space to creatively condition the body on the floor. And then we step out to close the experience. There are 52 moves of Nia, and these moves are in the book that you've been reading. They are all created with the design of the body in mind. So they are adaptable to anybody of any fitness level, which means that anybody can come into a classic Nia experience and make it really exactly what they need. So those are the basic fundamental mechanics of the experience. We use soul-stirring, diverse world music to stimulate both the brain and the body in different ways. As Debbie said, we use vocal expression and sounding and breath for both physical conditioning in the core, but also for emotional catharsis and release. So there are all of these different components that make up the Nia experience. But it is so unique to each person, and that's really where the magic happens.
Yeah, I do recall in reading at some point there was an explanation as to why you both say, or why you all say, stepping in. Can you expand upon that? Like, what is the importance of actually understanding stepping in versus just showing up?
Well, that was a concept that I learned from martial arts, particularly from Aikido. The preparation of leaving everything at the office, right? Parking the car, walking into that dojo and realizing I'm stepping in, first of all, to a space where people practice to be good human beings. They practice to learn how to protect themselves and protect their body. And the activity of putting on my gi and getting ready to prepare and kneeling on the mat and then stepping into the practice was something that I thought, that is, in today's busy lives, that's a very important practice to safety, because that's why I was taught in martial arts you do that. You leave behind distractions so you can be here. And I believe it's one of the unique signatures of Nia that people have brought into their everyday life. I'm going to step out of this and I'm going to step into this, and I'm going to leave behind distractions. I'm going to come present to this now moment.
Yeah, I love the intentionality behind that, right? And it's like, for me, growing up, as a young boy, I started martial arts when I was 4 years old. So I didn't really understand the concept of stepping in, but I was taught the concept. And that concept was very simple. It was just you bow. You bow when you enter, you bow when you exit. And as I got older, I started to understand. And sometimes it wasn't even about going to a class, stepping into a class. This is even if you step in to go and, I don't know, fix the refrigerator or, do something else, right? Like,
Exactly.
or someone who's not even a martial arts practitioner. Maybe they hadn't been a practitioner for 10 years. But when you step into the dojo, you're stepping in with intention and understanding what that space is about. And so I love that concept. I love it.
Yeah, you're stepping into sacred space. And I think the thing that I love so much about martial arts is the ceremonial practices that go along with it. I love that.
Absolutely. So, all right. So we've got this structure. Now, so how did this structure kind of build along? Because again, this is kind of back to my childhood martial arts experience. My father is the sensei of the dojo, and he created what's known as American Karate System, which was a blend of styles that he experienced throughout his, late teens and his, early adulthood, trying to figure out, he understood. He started off with martial arts, or started with Taekwondo. And with Taekwondo, he realized that he would go to tournaments and he would see that most of the Taekwondo practitioners mostly use their legs, right? They mostly do a lot of kicking, and they really hone in on kicking, which is great. But what happens if you fight someone who can defend against kicking very well and is able to grapple or can jam you up and you're unable to use your legs? So he thought, okay, let me also practice Goju-Ryu, let me practice Aikido, and let me practice some African styles. And so he put all of this together and called it American Karate System. And this was something that was built sort of pre-mixed martial arts, pre-MMA. This was something that was built before, UFC. And so I had this opportunity to go, oh, if I go to a karate competition or tournament and I see that there's someone that you can tell that he's a Taekwondo guy, I'm like, ooh, I know exactly what to do with him. This is like studying your opponent. And I would just watch and see that almost immediately, the fact that he had a Taekwondo uniform on, I go, okay, I know what to do on this match, right? So so I talked to my dad about this, and he explained the reason why he did that, right? So what caused you, or what allowed you to kind of build it the way you built it, Debbie?
I think two words come to mind. One, potential. And looking at the human potential of what is the potential of movement. When we think about movement, it's not just Taekwondo and it's not just Aikido. And adaptability is the second word. So I am going to have a greater response to protecting myself if I can adapt to whatever is coming at me. So I might defend if I'm in Taekwondo. I might harmonize conflict if I'm in Aikido. And so looking at the way that martial arts works with protection, I went, well, how do I protect myself in life? And I realized that being able to adapt physically, get up and down from the floor, turn, move linearly, right? Stop something or go with something, right? All really good ways to protect my body. Not just the physical, but also what do I use to become emotionally adaptive, mentally adaptive, and spiritually adaptive. And so whether it is exploring what we call the energy personality of Tai Chi, the slow dance, Taekwondo, a dance of precision, Aikido, the dance of harmonious spherical motion, there's something that's missing, and that is the emotional expression. I always make the joke, you're not going to see somebody throw a punch and they get a big grin on their face, right? Because the face has to stay very, very silent, right? But we're emotional beings. And so jazz allowed us to bring in not only isolated intrinsic movement of the joints, but fun showmanship and expression. Modern dance, creating shapes in space. And then Duncan dance, all of a sudden, was the discovery of it's not always about down and out or around. But what about the up? Now, certainly in Aikido, there's the up in throwing somebody, but I'm talking about feeling the freedom and the fun and the enjoyment of dance movement that's very childlike. And then add to this, it was like, okay, it's not enough to just protect myself, but why is it that I spiral my forearm bones? Why does that give me more power? So in looking at the design of the body and understanding function, I could actually understand where I wanted my movement to occur and why I wanted to spiral, or why I wanted to keep my fingers in, not have my fingers out, etc. So it gave me more understanding of how to live in my body and move my body and use my body, how to make managed, really good choices and decisions for my body at any age, and how to find meaning and purpose for absolutely everything we do. And Christina can tell you this. I say, if you can't tell me why we're doing this scientifically, then we're not going to do it until we figure that out.
Wow. Christina, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that level of depth and meaning and purpose and validation is one of the things that I love about Nia, and that I think makes Nia fairly unique in the fitness space, is it is everything that we do is fueled by a sense of meaning and purpose, and can be tested. And it is tested each time that each practitioner, each student, each teacher shows up to practice. And we have this incredibly rich curriculum of 52 primary principles that are introduced over a series of in-depth immersions and trainings. And then each of these principles, like I said, is tested in our body and in our life. And so it's very profound. And it's what keeps me around. Frankly, over the years doing different movement practices or exercises, I tend to get bored. And Nia is so rich and deep that it keeps me stimulated and interested.
Josh, I bet you can relate to this, having done martial arts your whole life and grown up with the philosophy of someone who developed a program and has a philosophy. And, the thing that I love is when somebody says, I practice martial arts, I study martial arts, I know why they do it. And it's not just to protect themselves, because it's a way of life and it's a philosophy. So it's a way of protecting your whole essence and your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual being. And that was really important for me in the development of Nia. How do we create, and that's why I say Nia is a movement art. How do I create an art out of living and moving in your body? And how do I provide elements, movements, and concepts, principles that people can study to enhance their body and life so they can live well and die well, which to me, that's what I want.
Well said. Well said. Now, before we carry on, because I can just imagine this is going to be, we're going to have lots to talk about. We're coming up to about the 30-minute mark, in which for about 8 shows or so now, I've introduced this Pomodoro Break, which is an opportunity for the guests to offer something to the listeners and the viewers, something they can do when they have been sitting for long periods of time or even standing for long periods of time, ways to kind of get out of this sedentary moment in time. So what would you offer to and either of you can take it or both of you can take it. I have something that I would like to see, but let's see what you come up with first.
Okay, mine is really fast. I use this all the time. I get out of my chair at the office, I stand up and I say, yes! And then I go, no! And then I sit down, because I find that I don't breathe deeply when I get heavily into work. And using sound, emotional evoking sound, is a great way to get your chi moving through your body.
If you don't mind, and if you're able to, I'd love to actually see it.
All right, let's stand up.
I'm going to do it with you.
Stand up right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like to just get a little action and move it. I'm going to throw my hands up 3 times and go, yes.
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 And now 3 times. No.
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 And then just smell the moment. And sense the aliveness of being.
Thank you. Look at that.
Yep.
That's awesome. Christina, while I'm up, is there anything that you can offer? Thank you for that, Debbie.
Yeah.
Oh, a couple come to mind. So one is to play with the contrasting energetic personalities. So I'm going to stay seated, just otherwise you'll lose me in the camera, but you stay standing.
Okay.
And bring your feet wider than hip distance apart.
All right.
Sense the soles of your feet on the floor. Good. And slowly begin to sway side to side, letting your hands push. Imagine that you're flowing through water. And we would say this is with the energy of Tai Chi, the slow dance. And now we're going to shift to jazz energy and give me a shimmy. Shimmy, 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 shimmy. Smile. You're on Broadway. And then go back to the Tai Chi sway. And then let your hands fall to the sides. Close your eyes if that feels good and safe for you. And just sense your breath here in this moment. And as Debbie said, connecting to that aliveness of being. Great.
And Josh, you just had 2 of the 9 movement art energy personalities. And we say that what you want is you want to feed your body with a menu of all of the 9 energy personalities. And what's important for our brain, to grow our brain and to benefit from the plasticity of the brain, we need to feed our brain with new, novel, and fascinating experiences. What happens for people when they go, I'm not getting the results I want, it's because they're doing too much of the same thing in the same way. So we work with movement and energy variety.
That I love very much. And it's actually a pretty interesting concept, which clearly I think it may have been borrowed. I think all movement is sort of borrowed, right? There is no patents on movement. But one of the biggest trends in that concept you just mentioned about varied movement is CrossFit, right? But what's interesting about CrossFit is, and I used to do CrossFit a lot, and I enjoyed it while I did it, but it's still within a certain domain, right? And I think it would be interesting to add some dance into CrossFit, to add some some jujitsu into CrossFit, right? Because there are people out there that are mixing those modalities anyway, right? So why not add that in? And I just feel like this is why I think Nia is so important. And it actually brings me to the question of, why do you think that Nia isn't as well known? I am someone that feels like that I know quite a bit of exercise modalities, exercise in quotes, exercise modalities and movement modalities, but I had never heard of it. Why do you think that may be?
I think there are a couple of reasons. First of all, Nia's only 40 years old. And yoga only became popular like in the last 15 years. It's a 5,000-year-old program. Pilates only came popular after the creator of Pilates died, and it had been around for 45 years. There are amazing programs available, like the work of Moshe Feldenkrais or Alexander Technique, incredible work. And they are in a niche. And oftentimes when a body of work is complex, it will not be something that the main public will go after. It's not simple enough. It's not simple to explain. And additionally, Nia is very revealing of who you are and the emotional expression of who you are. That can be uncomfortable for people. And somebody asked me one time, they said, how come you don't have any, Hollywood stars that do Nia? I said, well, first of all, can you imagine any Hollywood star coming into a Nia dance and feeling comfortable to go, and to show themselves? No. And that's a good thing. And it's been a marketing nightmare, as Christina can tell you.
Well, I can tell you this. If I have anything to do with it, we're going to change that, because one of the things I do think is interesting, you mentioned like Feldenkrais, you mentioned Alexander Technique. These things are very popular within the acting world, like the Broadway and theater and things like this. Right. So I feel like there could be a group of people out there waiting to do it. I know. Are you familiar with Gaga, the Gaga technique? Yeah. So I know a lot of actors that do that. So I feel like possibly you're on your way. If Pilates became popular after 45 years or, however long it took, you're only 5 years away, right? So
that's exactly right. And time is speeding up right now, right?
Well,
so should happen.
Let me offer you this. So, and take it for what it is. But so as I'm reading the book, I'm on tour. So I'm on tour with Roger Waters of Pink Floyd right now. And we happen to be in LA. And early on, I think we were, it was like the very beginning of the tour. And so I think we were still on the East Coast. I think we were in Chicago at the time. And, Roger is always trying to elevate his show. He wants it to be the best. And so he tweaks it every single show. I love that. And one of the other things I love about him is that he really takes his health and wellness and his longevity very seriously. And so I take my job very seriously and I have a lot of fun with it. But it's, I don't take for granted a type of person like him who's disciplined and willing to do whatever I tell him he needs to do. So as I'm reading the book, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of things that validates what I preach and what I think is good for working with a client. And so when we got to talking about the part about not caring what you look like and just feeling into the moment, it was right at the time when Roger had reached out to me and said, hey, Josh, I know you used to do some dance. Do you think you could help me with some dance moves? Because I kind of want to express myself on stage, but I don't look good doing it, and I don't know what to do. And I go, aha, right? And I had just been reading this anyway, and I said, okay, well, listen, I'd be more than happy to show you some simple 2-steps and some ways to groove. I said, but at the end of the day, no one thinks of you as a dancer. No one has ever thought of you as a dancer. In fact, a lot of people don't even think of you as a singer. They think of you as a bass guitarist, right? And a really amazing writer. Right. So who cares what you look like? If you are showing this audience that have paid money to come and watch you, if you show them that you're having a good time and you're truly having a good time, that's what's going to resonate. And so show after show after show after show, this man is up there grooving. And it's the coolest thing ever, because it's like one of those things where I know I got to him. I was able to get to him at a point in time in which he could trust me. And then sometimes I'm at the right below him on the stage, and I'm just like, just who cares? Just move, just have fun, So, and he's always barefoot, by the way.
Well, you gave him the essence of what we call, how do you tap into the essence of chi, which is life force? Well, we all have to bring our own personality into that life force. And when we are able to express who we are and how we do what we do, we light up like a Christmas tree. If we have to become something we're not, or attempt to do the step, it comes off mechanical, and you gave him the best gift.
Yeah, one of the things that I recall, like, I'm laughing because of what happens within me when I'm teaching someone, and I know it's a very vulnerable moment, right? But one of the things that I wanted to do is just show him that, like even though I was a dancer, I was never really a dancer. I learned to dance. I learned to move my body in a choreographed way, right? So I was able to do that. Yeah. I said, but let's just start simply with moving your hips, kind of like you had me doing, Christina. And I called it the Spinal Wave. So this was before I was really diving into this. So I was just like, hey, let's just do a spinal wave. And what would it look like and feel like to you to allow your body to move in a wave? Right? And what would that look like? And I said, don't worry about what I'm doing. In fact, close your eyes and do it. And so he's sitting there doing that. And then I said, okay, now imagine your hands are paintbrushes, and you dip your hands, the paintbrushes, into the paint, and you're going to paint the ceiling. And then you're going to paint the wall in front of you, and then you're going to paint the floor. And I was just watching him do this. And I'm like, yes, right? Yes, you're doing it.
George Balanchine used to do the same thing. He would take people off the street in New York City, and he'd bring them in, and in such a fast speed, he'd get them like they're dancing on Broadway. Incredible.
Amazing. Christina, you were going to say something?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say, what you did is one of the tools that we use in Nia to stimulate authentic movement, and that is using imagery. So we say that Nia is a workout for the body, yes, and the mind and the emotions and the spirit. And to engage the mind, we use imagery and imagination, and it allows people to find their body's own way of moving, which really can liberate them in their own body. That's one of the things that people often say about Nia is, I feel like I'm finally at home in my own skin. And so you're doing it. You've done it.
That's so cool. Yeah, I really hope that people come away from listening to this with some amount of curiosity, because obviously they need to be curious and aware that they even can make changes like this, right? Because like modern day society tells us that we have to exercise. You've got to run a certain amount. You got to, and when people think of exercise, they think of the opposite of what we're talking about, right? They think of, well, you have to have a gym membership to exercise. No, you don't. You've got to have a trainer to exercise properly. No, you don't. Right? Like, you can do exactly what I just did with what you guys walked me through, or you can just sit in your chair and feel like what it's like to have your bum in this seat, right? Just sometimes we just lack awareness. So, okay. So one of the things that I also noticed in the book is that there's a lot of testimonies. And there's a lot of people who, their lives have been just dramatically changed simply because they were able to kind of adhere to this practice. So maybe could you point out one or two that come to mind, or one or two that are just kind of the most transformative testimonies, so that the listeners and viewers have an opportunity to understand?
Well, I can go back and pull back from history, but I want to share one that is the most recent that had me literally in tears. A woman that had been dancing with Nia for years was in an accident, a boating accident, and she lost one of her legs above the knee and her other leg below the knee. And I sent a card to her, some things, and she wrote me back this beautiful email, and she said, if it had not been for Nia, I don't think I would have been able to stay in my body. And she said, the fact that I know, and she's a doctor, she says, the fact that I know about the body and my core is such an important part of how I move my limbs. She said, what I'm able to do, even in sitting up right now, is giving me confidence that I'm going to be able to get through this. Wow. And that reminds me of our byline, through movement, we find health. at any age, and in any state of health and well-being.
That's beautiful. Wow. Wow. That is, I mean, whew, it's heavy.
Yeah. That one took me back.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Christina, I know you've done so many interviews with people.
I have.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many stories. I'm filing through them. And rather than even calling out one, I think that what I feel called to share is having been a studio owner for 10 years and really watched people in my community walk through the door, most of whom did not have an active fitness or movement practice. I live in a rural area, and so a lot of people were coming in because they were in pain and were seeking relief. And most of the time they came in for yoga, since that we also offered yoga, and that was what was familiar to them. They hadn't heard of Nia. But generally, one way or another, they would find their way into a Nia class, and witnessing the transformation that would occur in people, both after one class, but also over months or years. And witnessing people wake up to themselves and come alive to themselves and their bodies, watching their bodies transform, but even more than that, their lives. And it can be little things like having somebody come back from attending a wedding and say, for the first time, I got up on the dance floor and felt comfortable dancing. I never would have done that before. I would have been too uncomfortable or worrying what people would think, all the way to people, following their dreams, leaving careers, opening new businesses because they had the self-confidence and self-awareness to know that they could do it. So it's too many to choose just one.
And we come into life in a body. We're going to go out in a body. We live life in a body. And yet my experience of watching people all of a sudden drop the shame associated with this is my body, and to open up to the sensual, powerful sensations that are available when you inhabit all parts of your body besides the sexual experience, all parts, and you learn that you can feel turned on to life and turned on in your body to life every single second, has changed people's lives, I think, more than anything, that they feel at home in their skin.
Wow. Yeah, this is incredible. And I think obviously I kind of have a leg up on those that might be listening or watching because I've been reading the book. But one of the things before we start coming to a close, one of the things that I definitely wanted to highlight or touch on is the 13 joints movement. Could we go over that? Because when I was reading it, I'm like, wow, you know what? This is pretty cool, because it's like I came up with this thing called MAP, which is movement analysis pattern. And it's 10 moves in which I noticed that throughout my, 20 years or so of training people, I noticed that there's going to be a certain subset of movements that we're all going to go through. And I try to put them all into a very concise assessment protocol that can be done anywhere, anytime. And when I came across the 13 joints, movement, I was like, oh, this is kind of in that same ballpark, right? So there's a lot of synergy between us, because I love that you're doing it. And so what I'm reading is almost validating what I've thought up in my head. And so now I feel like there's a way we can bring these forces together to kind of bring it to more people, right? But let's talk about the 13 joints exercise or movement.
Well, we talk about joints as mouths that open and close, that move energy. This is where we move energy. Bones are where we extend energy. And watching someone go from their youth into adult, into aging, what happens based on their behavior and their movement or lack of movement, overuse or underuse. It's pretty visible, as you said, by looking at their pattern. What joint did they stop using? Most often it's the ankles, and people start picking up their feet to walk, which completely changes the way the energy flows through the body. And then from there, knees. People start locking their knees to stand up, thinking if I lock my knees, I'll be able to stand. When in reality, you lock your knees, you stop using the muscles of the legs. Then besides that, people stop moving their pelvis. Women will stop moving their pelvis. It could be based on somebody making a comment, they're being too sexual, too sensual, or they feel too sensual when they move their pelvis. Both are uncomfortable, right? Then when it comes to, wrists and elbows and shoulder joints, there's so much of this kind of control that happens, of controlling, wanting to reach out, for example, and hug somebody, right? Now, we live in a world now where touching is inappropriate. And so we are basically, our lifestyle, sedentary, and the lack of touch, the lack of freedom to be expressive in touch is actually creating a lot of illness in people's 13 joints in terms of the movement of energy. So we give those 13 joints, the ankles and knees, hip joints, wrist, elbow, shoulders, the spine as the center column, as a way to check out every day. How are my joints? Which joint am I overusing or underusing?
Would either of you be able to offer the movements or yeah? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. So you can stand up. We always start on the left side of the body, and we start on the left side of the body with the left ankle. We start with what's touching the ground. So you start to move your left ankle, and you move it around like your wrist, basically, flex and point and circle. Right, and you just can sense that. We're always sensing for comfort and pleasure. And then to move your knee, you may bend, expand your leg, or swivel your swivel your shin bones around. Just swing your shin bone a little bit to get your knee, yeah. And then the hip joint, you could turn your left toes in and out, or you could lift your thigh bone up and swing it around. So you get a sense in the hip joint. That's joint 1, 2, and 3. 4 is your left wrist. We say wave or circle. 5 is your elbow. Just open and close your elbow, right? And then we have 6, the shoulder joint. And that can be activated by turning your palm up and down, so you can really feel that joint open. And then number 7 is your entire spine. So you move everything from right under your nose or right between your eyes to the tailbone. Wag your tail a little bit more, Josh. Wag that tail. There we go. And that activates the movement of the hip joints, which is important. Then we go down from the top, joint 8, the right shoulder. Again, you can move your upper arm bone or turn the palm. And then 9, the elbow, open and close the inside of the elbow. Maybe move your elbow up and down. And then the wrist, the right wrist. And then we go into the right side, the hip. Again, you can turn the toe in and out on the right side, or you can just imagine you're stepping over a box, and that'll swing that thigh out. Right? Knee sweeping. And then the knee, you can again kick the shin or just do a little squat, bend, extend. And then finally the right ankle. And then after you get all 13 joints activated, walk around the room with all 13 joints kind of having their moment. Ankles and knees and hips, and everybody wants to dance in the joint dance and play. And that includes, Josh, taking your head and saying, yes,
yeah.
As you walk, or no.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, getting the instruction straight from the source is very, very cool. So thank you for that. Yeah, and I love it because, to be honest with you, both of you, your energy is amazing. And just by being a part of this and reading this and listening to the stories, also feeling what I'm feeling and trying to like take my time and actually go through the protocols that are laid out there. There's almost never a moment in which I'm upset or, frustrated or whatever, because it's not even about that. It's not about doing it right. It's about doing it, right? It's about feeling it. And so that to me should allow people to go, you know what, let me just check it out. Let me just at least check it out. So before we get to the last couple of questions, what is something that you would love to mention to my listeners and followers and just the world about Nia?
Christina, go first.
Well, there's so many things. For people that are interested in getting a taste, having the Nia class experience, I love your phrase, Josh, awareness through experience. And we can talk about this practice all day, and you can watch a video of it, but that is not going to help anybody understand what it really is. It has to be understood and experienced from the inside out. So there's Nia On Demand, which is a great resource for people to get 2 weeks of free access to dozens and dozens of Nia class experiences, from 5-minute dance breaks to full hour classes. That's one really great way to experience Nia. Another is we have Nia teachers all over the world. And so if you visit nianow.com, people can find a local Nia teacher in their area. And also, yep, you're sharing. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Nia On Demand. For those who are not listening, I have shared my screen with the Nia On Demand link that Christina just mentioned. And then the other one was, what was the other one?
nianow.com, which is our primary website where you can find our network of global Nia teachers who offer classes both online and in person. And then the other thing that's very exciting is that 2023 is Nia's 40-year anniversary. And along with that, we are in the process of revamping and relaunching our foundational Nia Body and Life education experience, which we have historically called the Nia White Belt, and its new name is the Art of Sensation. And that is really what the practice is about living in sensation in your body. And it is an immersive experience. People can take the Art of Sensation as a 16-week online training. And Debbie has one beginning in January of 2023. And then it's also offered in person over 7 days. Same curriculum with different options to fit people's lifestyle. But that gives so many tools to live that embodied, vital, vibrant life that, I think everybody would benefit from.
Thank you for that. That's very, very helpful. So again, for those of you that are only listening, I would seriously consider coming to check out the video so you can see these two lovely young ladies, but also to see some of the things that I just shared. So I was going through the website, or of course you can just go through the websites on your own. And of course, at the very, very end, we will offer the best ways to keep in touch on all of this again, so that you make sure you don't miss it. Debbie, is there anything else that you would like to say to the people?
Well, I think, when I was asked to write a book, I thought, who uses a book on exercise, right? But I do. And I do predominantly because I want to hear about the philosophy. I want to know what's behind the scenes, what's behind something if I'm going to get involved. And I think the book is a great way for people to work out at home. There are 52 moves. You can take one move a day or one move a week and do that one move for 1 minute and add on 30 seconds and work up to like 5 minutes of doing that move and walking around, and you'll be amazed at how much better you'll feel. And put on your favorite music and start out dancing for 1 minute and add 10 seconds every day. And before you know it, if you have been telling yourself, I can't, you'll discover I can.
Amazing. Yeah, there's so many like nuggets of information that can be taken from this conversation, but also from the book. There's so much awareness. You know, I wrote a book, The Awareness Shift, and so when I come across anything that focuses on awareness, I'm really, really keyed in. And so you've done a good job with that. So kudos to you and to the whole Nia team. The thing I do love about Nia, more than the philosophy and the concept and the movement and how you feel, the thing I think is really cool is the community aspect that I've felt it. I've seen it. I've felt it. Even just talking with you two, I can see why it's such a good community. And it starts from the top, right? So if you want a successful company to thrive, then it needs to be really, really authentic, and it should start from the top and trickle down. So I think you're doing that. Well done. So.
Well, if there's one thing I learned from martial arts is you always get back up.
Ooh.
You get back up. And I have used that in my business a lot. Okay, boy, that one really knocked me down. What are you going to do? I'm going to get back up. What did you learn from that? What are you going to do now? And my husband always says, you bought the Earth ride ticket. Get back on and go for the ride.
Boom. I love it. Okay. Well, this has been great. This is the part of the show where I ask a couple questions. Since I have two of you, maybe let's just do one each on the both questions. So the first question is, what is your top pet peeve? What is something that kind of gets under your skin, something that comes to mind? Doesn't have to be in the world of fitness or movement, but it can be from anything. And either one of you can start.
I think for me right now is when I hear people want diversity, equity, inclusion, and they're closed-minded, rather than it's about opening and making space for all, absolutely all. And that's one of my pet peeves.
That's a good one. It's a really good one. Thank you. Christina?
I really had to ponder at this one. I think that stagnation or apathy as an energy are two of my pet peeves. I love growth and evolution, and I get frustrated when things stop.
Awesome. Yeah, I almost explain this every show, but the reason why I ask this question is because I feel like I'm doing my part in trying to help people understand what makes a person tick. And so if you want to keep people in your circle, right, it's all about being very, decisive or intentional about the people you keep around you. And the best way to do that sometimes is to know what makes them not want to be around you, right? And so, like, if it's like for me, loud chewing, it's really hard for me to, I just have this thing that I really cannot hear what a person is saying if they're loud chewing. And we call it smacking from where I'm from in Oklahoma. So if a person's smacking around me, it's almost like I can't even sit with you at dinner because it's that's all I hear.
Okay, if we ever go to dinner, I'm going to be very self-conscious now. All of a sudden,
it's all good. It's all good. But it is one of those things that I think that it just allows people to kind of go, oh, maybe that's why he doesn't schedule meeting or lunch meetings and dinner meetings and things like that.
Right.
So anyway, the last question, which is one of my favorites, what is something you're most grateful for?
I am so grateful that I have been gifted with the awareness to know what my purpose is and what I love, and that I have found a husband number 3 that is truthfully dedicated his life to me living that life.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Christina.
Mm-hmm. I feel really grateful at this moment in time that I sense balance and alignment and harmony in all aspects of my life, in my family, as a mother and a partner, and in my work that is so fulfilling and meaningful to me, that is absolutely aligned with my purpose on this planet. And that through that work, I get to connect with amazing people like you, Josh, and others. I feel very fulfilled in life, and I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you as well. This is why I like that question. That's why I also like to finish on that note, because it's just so powerful, so beautiful. And I think practicing gratitude is probably one of the biggest bang for your buck. And so when people really, they start to get a sense for practicing gratitude, because it can also be a practice, right? Then so many things start to open, right? Like you said before, Debbie, like just to be open, sometimes we just got to practice gratitude sometimes. So, so thank you both for that. And to finish up, what is the best way, again, because we already talked about it, but what are the best ways to keep in touch, even rattle off the socials as well?
Absolutely.
Christina.
So, of course, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Nia Technique. We have a Facebook community, Nia Life, which is a really great way to connect to the global Nia community and ask questions and kind of, lurk maybe to kind of see what it's all about. We also have, and we can give a link, Josh, to a free download, which is a guide and a checklist that has many of the things we discussed, including the 13 joint exercise that Debbie guided us through, as a little guide that you can print out and keep or have on your phone on how to build a Nia lifestyle that really brings more movement and mindfulness and connection and joy into everyday life. And so all of that is available on the link that we'll share with you, and also on our website, nianow.com.
Great. And if I remember correctly, the Nia Life group is mostly Facebook, right? That's the Facebook group?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
That's a Facebook group. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, and then the Nia On Demand, where people can get 2 weeks free and really experience Nia.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both for your patience at the beginning of this again. And thank you for your time. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for sharing this. And again, I'm going to do my best to get this out there. And I would assume that you guys are open to having people message you. So if you're listening, if you're watching, feel free to reach out to both of them and to me if you want to know kind of my experience. And I hope to start sharing a little bit more of my Nia experience. So, okay.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
And I'm going to put on some Pink Floyd music and
All right. Well, thank you guys for your time again. And for the listeners and viewers, thank you for your time. Until next time, this is Josh signing out with Simply Walk the Talk. Peace.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen. Better come give us a minute or two. Open the box up, we giving you tools. Giving your engine the fuel that it needs. Breathing into it, it's autoimmune. Make a connection, we're stronger in two. Making us one of a kind of a few. Work on the mind, but show me your moves. If you do what you say, you know what to do. Yeah.
Simply walk the talk.